seems like a very unfair spiritual process. It's like a very undemocratic process. So the line, I think, is about many being called, but few chosen.
I would say many being called, but few choose. Few choose to really come. It's not few are chosen, just a few choose to take the step. People ask me how many steps. Just say, I tell them take one step. And there is only one step. You have taken 1,000,000 steps outward, just one step inward, that's all it takes. But you can't take a step inward like this, you have to turn around and take it. But you're not willing to turn around because you made investments on the outside. It is not that if you turn inward, you lose the outside, it is not so. It is an uncalled for fear. And once again, this fear has been nourished by all kinds of misinterpretations of spirituality. People have always told you if you turn spiritual, you will leave everything and go away. If you turn spiritual, your residence has to be in a Himalayan cave along with the rodents. It cannot be in Bombay. Yes. So an inward step has nothing to do with Himalayas or with Mumbai. It's got nothing to do. Mumbai and Himalayas is a choice of residence, that's all. That's an outward thing, it's nothing to do with your spirituality at all. You like to live in the mountains, fine, it's up to you. It has its advantages and disadvantages. You like to live in Mumbai, it has its advantages and disadvantages, isn't it? It is just that for a long time, all those people who wanted to, because there was no process of divorce in India, a lot of people chose spirituality as a way to leave their family, okay? Because there was no honorable way of leaving your family unless you said, I'm going spiritual. So, it's an excuse that a lot of people have used for a very long time. I don't think now you need an excuse, do you?
But I don't find my inside a very nice place.
You have never seen your inside. What you are right now calling as inside is your mind. Your mind is not inside. Your mind is just society's garbage bin, isn't it? Everything in your mind you picked up from outside. Everything that is in your mind is just what you've been exposed to, isn't it so? Isn't it so? So your mind is not inside, your mind is outside.
Processing also. We do some processing of that garbage.
You do some processing.
I choose to come and sit and listen to you, but I won't choose to go and…
Yes. See, you have no choice about what you take in. You have choice about what you make use of and what you don't. Yes? But even that choice is not really a choice, because that choice is also set up by something else that's gone in earlier. So you really have no great choice about it. Everything, the content of your head and the content of your body, both were collected from outside, isn't it so? You understand what I'm saying? This body you slowly accumulated. How? Just by eating food, isn't it? The content of your mind also you accumulated, just by your exposure and the impressions of what enters you through the 5 agencies. And these 5 agencies that you're using to collect the impressions of life around you, they are not reliable at all. When I say they're not reliable, one thing is, people have always told you, seeing is believing. Seeing is not believing, you know very well, everybody sees what they want to see, isn't it? Does everybody see the same thing? No, everybody sees what they want to see. Everybody does not see what is there. And going more fundamental into the very process of vision itself, even that's not reliable. Why is this so? That even something so fundamental is questionable is, sense organs were opened only to serve survival. They are sufficient instruments of survival. But if you're seeking something beyond survival, now you're talking enlightenment, which is not a survival process. Once you're looking at something beyond survival, then sense organs are no good. You have to have another dimension of perception. So the whole process of spirituality is just about enhancing your perception. Unfortunately, if I use the word spirituality, people think they'll have to do Ram Ram or go sit in the temple or in the church or mosque or they have to give up their food, or they have to give up their clothing, or something. It's not about that, it's about enhancing your perception. The only way to know is by enhancing your perception. Everything else is just belief, isn't it? And what you believe is immaterial, because if we work hard enough on you, we can make you believe any damn thing. We know that very well. We just have to work hard enough on you. We can make you believe the weirdest of things in the world if we work upon you right from your childhood, isn't it so? Haven't you seen enough of life around? You know that. So what you believe, whatever it may be, is of no existential value. It may have social value. When you talk about enlightenment, you are not talking about social or personal dimension of life. You're talking about an existential dimension of life. If you have to be open, if you have to know life in an existential way, the only way is to enhance your perception, not by thinking it up, not by philosophizing, not by discussion, not by believing. Only with enhanced perception can you receive life, can you know life. There is no other way to know life. So enlightenment means a heightened level of perception in an ultimate way. If your perception is full on, you receive everything that can be received and know life in its totality. We would call that enlightenment. Now that you asked, how does it feel? Let me try to work around that. Fundamentally, it would… technically, I would say, enlightenment would be like this. If you sit here, your body is here, your mind is out there, what is me is always away from these two things. You can use the body, you can use the mind, but what is you is always a little away from these two things. If you look at life's experience, the biggest limitation upon you right now is your body and your mind. But the only two possibilities in your life are also your body and mind. Yes? The only possibility to exist here is just your body and your mind. At the same time, the biggest limitations upon you are also your body and mind, isn't it? The source of all suffering that any human being may know is his body and mind, isn't it so? Is there any other suffering? All the suffering in the existence, all the human suffering on the planet, the manufacturing unit is in your mind, isn't it so? If you have a little distance from this body and mind, now once you have a clear experience that you are free from suffering, once there is no fear of suffering, how would you live here? Every step that you take right now is half a step, because there is a fear of what will happen to me, what will happen to me, what will happen to me. If you carefully observe your life, I would say, for a majority of the population, at least 90% of their life is dedicated to their security. Their life, the steps that they take in their life are not being taken in search of joy or love or freedom or anything. It is always in search of security, isn't it so? Yes? When you're constantly in pursuit of security, what you're doing is you're in pursuit of death. Because life is never secure. It doesn't matter what you do, how much insurance you have, how much bank balance you have, how many thousand people you have around you, tomorrow morning you may just fall dead. Yes? We are not wishing it, but it can happen, isn't it? It's happening to so many people. It can happen to you or me tomorrow morning, isn't it? So as long as you're a physical body, as long as your life and the experience of life is limited only to the physical and the mental, living with fear and being constantly security-oriented is unavoidable. It's inevitable. That's the only way you can live. So if your experience of life transcends the limitations of the physical, now physical and mental are there in your life, but you are never a part of it. You can use it, you can enjoy it, but you never become that. If this freedom is attained, can you imagine how you will live? Unbridled life, isn't it? You can play with life any way you want, but life cannot leave a single scratch upon you. Is that a good description of enlightenment? Is it worthwhile?
It sounds right.
Huh?
It sounds frightening also.
Frightening what?
When you're enlightened, does that person become like vapor? Like you begin to see that you begin to see that everything is like Maya and illusion, and everything fades, and people who, if someone you love gets enlightened, would they also see that you're meaningless and
You should ask people around me whether I love them or my involvement with them is more or less than anything that they've known in their life with anybody. With thousands of people, I'm very deeply, passionately involved. If you're free from suffering, if you're free from the fear of suffering, would you hesitate to involve yourself in life or would you throw yourself into life? Right now you're hesitating. Right now most of you are made like this. If somebody suddenly smiles at you on the street, you hesitate. Why is this man smiling at me? Because you're afraid what would be the consequence of that. Fundamentally you're afraid tomorrow it may hurt me, tomorrow something else may happen to me out of this, isn't it? So, you're constantly hesitating to involve yourself with life simply because of fear of suffering. If fear of suffering is taken away, you could give yourself absolutely to everything around you, isn't it? So this way, would you love more or love less? Would you love more or less?
difficult to imagine, but logically from what you've said, yes.
See, I can only speak logically to you. Do you want me to speak another language which is not logical?
Yes. We don't mind, I have no problem with fuzzy. But I have a problem
but
with
still logic.
If the world is
Fuzzy logic.
organized like that, is it organized? If it's illogical, then I don't mind illogical. But is it illogical?
See, logic means to carry on any kind of logic, you need two. You need you and me to have a logical speech. When you say enlightenment, you're talking about one. Now, the modern science is a logical development. But today, physics has reached a point where it's no more logical, because the scientists have made too much investment in logic and they're unwilling to admit that they're turning illogical, they're giving the name fuzzy logic to their illogical nonsense. They're afraid to admit that their logical ways have no further scope to pursue science. That's the reason these kind of words have been coined. If you're fuzzy, how can you be logical? Tell me. To be logical, you must be like a knife, isn't it so? Yes or no? If you want to be logical, you must be like a knife, cutting everything into pieces. If you're fuzzy, how will you be logical? So fuzzy logic itself is illogic, isn't it so? The very terminology is illogic. So right now, science is beginning to realize that logical way of approaching things is limiting. It cannot take you beyond a certain point. It's a good realization. But they've made so much investment in the logical, they're afraid to turn around and say that or do something else, because then all that you've worked on may become meaningless, like you're saying, it may become Maya. So if it is Maya, what's your problem seeing that? I have not said this, okay, this is not my statement. I am saying, in truth, if suppose person next to you is just a bubble of air, what is your problem in seeing it that way? Because you made an investment, isn't it?
Yeah, actually.
If you're a vested interest, you shouldn't talk about enlightenment. If you're a seeker, wanting to know what is true, only then you should talk about it. Now if you're telling me, even if this person is just a bubble of air, I would like to think he's made of gold, then I'm fine with you. I'm fine with you as a friend, but I won't talk enlightenment to you, because you have no intention like that. You have no intention of seeing life just the way it is. Why are we afraid of seeing life the way it is? You think the way creation is not as good as the way you have imagined it? That's a foolish idea, because you are just a piece of creation. Whatever you are imagining about life, the way creation is must be far more beautiful than the way you are imagining it, isn't it? Because you are just a tiny speck of creation. If you can think up so much, what created you must be much, much more, isn't it so? At least is it logical to see it that way?
And I see my mind as a fractured, fissured place with great capacity for violence. And therefore, extrapolating from that, my inventor could well have been demented. And the whole world, the whole of creation might not be benevolent. And that frightens me. And that's why I want him to be not a bubble of air.
Now, you need to understand this. Only the fundamentals of life were created by whatever you refer to as the creator. The rest of it is your creation. If you have a demented mind, that is definitely your creation. You already told me that no matter what information gets into me, I still have a choice of processing it the way I want. So right now, if it has processed itself to a corner where it's become violent, whose creation is this? Whose creation is this? It's your creation, isn't it? So it's got nothing to do with the creator as such. Whatever the existence right now around you, whatever you have seen, whatever created this, is it far beyond your intelligence and imagination? Yes? Is it well beyond it? Even a single atom, is it well beyond your perception and understanding and intelligence right now? Yes or no? So, such a magnificent creation that you can't even understand a tiny bit of it properly, could it be wrong? This right and wrong is your idea, isn't it? The only right thing to do is to be in tune with the existence and the creation, isn't it? Now, you are not living in the world, you are not a living being, because 95% of the time, you're only thinking about life, you're not living life. Whatever you're thinking, you're beginning to believe is life, unfortunately. What you think is not life. What you think has nothing to do with life. You can think whatever you wish to, but it has nothing to do with life as such.
People talk about destiny. Is there anything called destiny at all?
This has always been the fad in the world. That is, whenever you succeed, it's you. Whenever you fail, it's destiny. Yes. Whenever you're successful with something, you're proud of your success. That means in some way, you're taking the credit for your success, isn't it? Whenever you fail, it must be God's will. It has to be. Or anything that you cannot understand has to be God's will. So many things which were destiny a few years ago is no more destiny, isn't it so? Yes. Suppose you had 4 children and you lost 2 children, 100 years ago it was destiny. Not anymore, isn't it so? Yes or no? Not anymore, isn't it so? Now you know why. 100 years ago, you were young and fine and well, at least you were young, and you suddenly died at 30. It was destiny. If you die today at 30, we know why. You're drinking too much, you're not eating properly, you're smoking, you're doing something, we know you're killing yourself. Even when you started, we know you're killing yourself, isn't it? It's no more destiny. 100 years ago, if half the Chennai population did not have water to drink, it was destiny. Now we know who. Isn't it so? So a lot of things which were destiny are no more destiny. Why? Because your understanding, the scope of your understanding is increasing. As the scope of your understanding is enhanced, more and more things are falling out of the list of destiny and becoming your responsibility, isn't it so? So when I say yoga, when we utter the word yoga, what we are talking about is, it is about becoming a master of your own destiny. To a point where the very process of life and death is in your hands. The very process of life, death and birth also is in your hands. The very womb that you choose to be born in is by choice. To that extent you can take your life into your hands. As your understanding and perception of life deepens, you will see everything is in your hands. If your understanding and perception of life is very superficial, everything looks like it's happening from somewhere. Lights go off right now. Oh Shiva. Hasn't been the way? Hasn't that been the way for a long time? Yes or no? Even now in the village it's like that. Lights go off, it's God's doing. Now we know who, isn't it? If you're running a power company, now we know it's you. So, because our understanding and perception of life has been so limited, we have made everything into destiny. What you call as destiny are those dimensions of life which you created unconsciously. Whatever you can create unconsciously, you can also create consciously. If you create consciously, it will not be destiny. If you create it unconsciously, it all seems to be destiny, but it's still your doing. In this country, there has never been any destiny. Destiny business came from elsewhere. In this country, they always told you, no matter what happens to your life, it is your karma. Know what karma means? Action. They're saying it doesn't matter what's happening to you. You live or you die, it's your karma. You live well or you live badly, that's your karma. That means what? It's your actions which is creating this. Maybe a large part of your actions are unconscious. That doesn't matter, but it's still your actions. So when we say karma, that means no destiny, everything is yours. We're too much looking at the stars, isn't it? We're too much interested in various other planets except this planet. I hope people paid the same attention to this planet as they're paying to the other planets. It's time we pay some attention to this planet, because how this planet is will decide the quality of your life. How the other planets are will not decide the quality of your life right now. Too much attention is being paid to other planets.